Johnny here for Johnny's Car Care and Reviews with Marie. So today we're going to be talking about what happened in 2022, a little bit of what to expect for 2023. So this year we've gone through phases of it being the worst time to buy a vehicle to it's a great time or the best time of the year to buy a vehicle. We've also had some news, basically major news throughout the entire year. There was all this news basically like, don't buy a Ford. Boy, did Ford ever pop up in the news this year.
So much.
They popped up. They're the main, attack force, you could say, or they're picked on quite a bit for over MSRP prices. We know about it. We did videos, or I did videos about how to protect your price, what to know when you go into the dealer. Because remember, over MSRP is not a manufacturer's issue. It's a dealer issue. So big story this year as well. It was all about buying online and avoiding the dealership altogether. And again, lots of news stories basically about how Ford was going 100% online for their EVs. Did that turn out to be true? What's the real story? And well, we'll cover that, of course, here because we don't want you to be fooled. So we're going to BS bust, I guess, kind of the whole year, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
All the major stories.
That's perfect.
Let's BS bust it. So we're going to be talking about, recalls, of course. So why don't we just get started? Well, let's talk about some of our favorite models, some trouble that we've had throughout the year, just our personal stories dealing with all this and just trying to get our hands actually on vehicles. It hasn't been that easy. You've waited over about a year and a half now for, by the time you get your Ford Maverick, you'll have ordered it a year and a half ago. So that's been an interesting process. We went through the whole Bronco buying and ordering and receiving and owning process. We've owned a Bronco now for over a year. So let's just get started and jump right in, put the pedal to the metal on those big news articles for the year and how this affects you as a consumer. And of course, we will talk about and try to answer whether it's the worst or best time to buy a new or used vehicle. News stories all over the place, seems to change every few months. So let's just get right to it. Now, why don't we start right off with our big recall news? So everyone was having a lot of recalls. 2022 was a year of, you could say, a bit of trouble with initial quality. When it comes to vehicles, initial quality means when the vehicle is first delivered to you, it having zero issues. Now, this doesn't just mean things actually breaking. It just means anything that could bring you back to the dealership for something other than an oil change. So some of these can be minor nuisances, but Ford was definitely a leader on that. We saw it with the Ford Maverick. We followed the Ford Maverick story very, very closely. Several recalls there. And well, Ford did report the most recalls in the US. They're a two-time winner of this. So that's taken care of. We're on looking at automotive news. So if you want to follow great, accurate stories, follow automotive news. Now, Ford did 65 recalls. Volkswagen came in second with 45 recalls, but Ford's 65 recalls touched 8.6 million vehicles in 2002. Now, I don't recall. I did follow all 65 recalls. I do not recall them all off the top of my head, but I do know some of these were as simple as just checking certain vehicles underneath them and verifying that the gas tanks were painted correctly. So
if it's just paint, it's not that bad.
Yes, that's a really good point. Not all recalls are very serious, and
it's not always about security.
No, that's true. That's true. And personally, I worry more about a company that has very few recalls, but are known to have reliability issues than a company that does, a lot of recalls. Ideally, in an ideal world, vehicles could be built perfectly. The first shot in every single piece in them would be perfect until 25 years down the road, and you never need to go to the dealership. That's never been possible for any vehicle. So vehicles do need recalls if you're going to make sure that the product you've put in customers and consumers' hands is a good product. We do have to recall that No manufacturer makes the vehicle from scratch, beginning to end now, well, at least not the mass-produced vehicles. And well, they find things out later. Just recently on the channel, someone did comment. They left a comment for Marie to review and bring to my attention, you could say. And they're talking really about how could Ford let some bad valves into the 2.7 liter engine, that Bronco engine, and that it makes them worried about the entire quality of the Bronco. Now, do keep in mind that when manufacturers receive these pieces, let's say they receive several thousand at a time, they're going to test a certain percentage. And if all those pass the test, they don't need to do more testing. It gets that initial testing. They don't test every single piece. Nobody does that. So from time to time, you will, from that valve story in the blown engine, what happened is you had roughly 60 blown engines. And these were due to bad valves, improperly coated, and this would have come in a huge batch. So they just slid through the process, and others must have been tested. But what is important is, how does the manufacturer react? And in this case, Ford supplied people with brand new engines. But we're not just here to talk about Ford. We're talking about all the major stories during the year. So one major story is electrification. You've waited a year and a half for your Maverick.
Yeah, when you choose an hybrid, I guess you need to have the time to wait. That's the first thing.
That's very well said. You do need to be willing to wait, and this isn't a Ford.
Like that with every brand too.
Really well said. It's not just a Ford story. Now, Ford has taken, I'd say, the blunt of abuse from journalists. They are the ones that got covered in the news the most in regards to, delays, wait times. But it's really not the case. Now, you used to work at a Toyota dealership, and, we still know people, and we definitely still speak to people at Toyota, and the Toyota RAV4 Prime is looking at a 5 to 6 year wait.
That's a long wait. That's incredible.
At most dealerships. And Hyundai and Kia, if you want anything electric or hybrid from them, you're also looking at long wait periods. So the Mustang Mach-E, we've covered it many times during the year. There's, generally speaking, because it can vary from one dealer to another, but you're looking at wait times that are going to range, depending on the model, from about 4 months to a year and a half. And for the Lightning, so we can pop the Lightning rate up on the screen. For the Lightning, well, also depending on whether the dealership actually properly enrolls or, customer order verification process. If they do the proper process to proving to Ford that you're a real client, that they're going to sell it to you at the correct price, you're looking at considerable wait times. It can be easily over a year and a half. However, not everyone is going to take possession of their vehicle. So do keep your eye open. If you see on the internet a Lightning for sale, that's not just a digital photo, but a real live in-person photo, that vehicle's available, and you will see some Lightnings available. Now, there were certainly big price increases when it comes to the Lightning. How much did our Lightning go up?
I don't remember.
I guess that means I'm going to be the one that's paying.
Yeah.
If we can make it
I'm not sure
happen.
if you told me. Maybe that's why.
It depends whether
you keep the secret, so you want to have somebody who tells you, "Oh, you're sure you want to buy that?"
Well, with the credits for not getting certain things on it, it's about it went up about $12,000. So definitely painful. And we will talk about the general market, because the general market used vehicles have also gone down in value. But keeping to the story to EVs, no matter where you're looking, EVs do have a long wait time. So we can pop up the GMC the Denali here, because over at GMC and Chevrolet, they sold out, and they've got about a 2-year backlog. This thing sold out very, very quickly. Good looking. I feel it's a good looking vehicle. It got a lot of coverage this year, just like the F-150 Lightning. How do you feel about the F-150 Lightning styling?
I really love the style. It's like other F-150 because it's a great looking, so we need to continue like that. But at the same time, they add the perfect touch to let us see that it's an electric vehicle. And I found that the Denali did the same, because you see the grille in the front, it looks, with the lights, it's totally an electric vehicle, like Ford did, did with the Lightning. Yeah, and
that's
it's
right.
the touch of the little lights, LED lights. So yeah, they have similar particularities, but they don't look the same at the same time. So
No, and I am happy that they've got more or less their own look. Now, of course, the exterior, kind of Ford came out with the sea lights, and they're getting a little somewhat close in styling. But the GMC and the Chevrolet, they're going to have their own styling well enough. You can definitely tell it's an electric vehicle. You said it well. They've got the grill look, which is no longer a grill. It's just a closed off space with, of course, what everyone's calling I'm not even going to say it, the front trunk area. Both have quite a bit of space. One of the things I was a little disappointed in regards to the electric Cadillac is, they're not, so far, it looks like they're not going to be using that front space, but the trucks definitely are. Now, I am liking this, but I'm not liking the prices. I think a lot of people would agree with me. The prices on electric vehicles are really high, and
and at the same time, people want it and they are willing to wait. So maybe that's why they keep that kind of price.
Of course, if the demand's there. Yeah, and believe me, the cost on producing these vehicles is significant, and battery prices went up dramatically this year. If you are looking for an electric vehicle and you think, sometimes I get, if we're talking about the Ford Maverick, people saying, you know what, I'm just going to go buy X model, or I can't wait for Toyota to come out with a small hybrid pickup because I'll just buy that instead. If Toyota comes out with a hybrid pickup, it's going to be ridiculously sold out and probably quite a bit worse than the Maverick is, because look at the RAV4 Prime, 5 to 6 years to get one. So I love reading everyone's comments, but the one that makes me chuckle probably the most is when people say, if Toyota comes out with a hybrid truck, I am dropping Ford and I'm out of here. Well, guess what?
Not that fast.
Not that fast, partner. That Toyota is going to take you definitely quite some time to actually get, unless you're first in line. But that's not, if you're not first in line for the Maverick and you're complaining about the wait time, well, if you're then first in line on the Toyota hybrid truck, that may or may not happen. It's not a fair comparison. Just like if you're a very late order for the Lightning, but then you ordered on the 5-minute mark of being able to reserve an electric truck over at GMC, and then you say, hey, I'm going to end up getting my GMC sooner. Well, you may or may not, but just the same, not quite a fair comparison. But this year, I definitely have said several times, I'm liking the new styling. Kia, both Kia and Hyundai, I've said, hey, great, Hyundai, they've got their own styling now. It doesn't look like a direct copy of a certain vehicle or a mix-up of 2 or 3 different vehicles. They've got their own styling. But then at one point, just recently, Marie really made me chuckle because she said, are you sure they've got their own styling? So probably one of the vehicles that, is actually in existence right now that I find very attractive. And you can throw it on.
That joke on internet. We need to show you. So it says on the joke, because now we don't see the word, but it says, oh yeah, you think it's a new look that they bring, but it's an old look that they bring back.
And for the last multiple decades, something that has, from the very beginning of Hyundai and Kia coming to our market, something that's always bothered me is that it's great that they're offering a less expensive option, not when it just looks like a copy of an existing style. And I love the styling of this vehicle. And I still love it, even though we now see that it is a copy. I think that's looks like an old Renault.
But we see that it's more sophisticated because of the line diagonal lines in the doors. So we see it's more a sophisticated look than
absolutely
the other one.
But it's a fair joke.
Yeah.
It is a very fair joke. The person that created that spotted that, threw it on the internet, and is turning it into a meme. Well done, sir. Very well done. But performance out of Hyundai and Kia, I love it. I love that they're, pushing out performance. And, performance out of an electric vehicle isn't difficult to produce, but it is nice that they're going there. Very nice that they're going there. So I'm looking forward to that, because for a long time, Hyundai or Kia just meant 6 cylinders that weren't high performance, 4 cylinders that weren't the highest performance either. And they're starting to turn that around. You can see that, with other prototypes coming up. They're playing around with retro looks with their prototypes, and they're also playing around and talking about lots of power. And of course, I'm a fan of more cars and more power, no matter what the manufacturer. What I'm not a fan of is having average power and then average reliability or low reliability. Mind you, all manufacturers these days, everyone is relatively reliable. We're not talking about the 90s and, early to 2010, 2015. 1999, you could definitely have between average reliability and the most reliable model, there was a huge difference in reliability. Now, one motor I really hope is going to be reliable this year, or when it comes out and it's offered in more models, is the Hurricane motor. I think it's really cool. If you go way back when to the Willys Jeep, they had this name for their inline 4-cylinder. And oddly, this twin turbo inline 6-cylinder actually weighs slightly less than the old Willys 4-cylinder from over 50 years ago. So
wow.
Shows you how technology can really change things. Now, this is a technological marvel, and I just hope that it's going to be reliable. I know there's going to be a lot of I'm predicting that this is actually going to replace V8s over at Stellantis, but this is a fantastic engine, and I, of course, don't want to see V8s go away in any way. But if they have to go away, I want there to be amazing 6-cylinder options. And a twin turbo inline 6, and inline 6 is just inherently better than a V6. Less vibration or no vibration, much better chances to be unbelievably reliable, unless, of course, the reliability is just ruined by bad electronics. I think of BMW motors, some Mercedes motors, they'd be unbelievably reliable, but when they do break the motors, often it's not the motor itself that was the cause. It was an electric component that failed. And then because of the electric component failing, then the motor gets damaged or fails completely. So that's sad. These days, all vehicles, there is no option. You can't just option out a vehicle to, not have airbags, and option out a vehicle to not have any technology in it. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's just not doable. In some cases due to laws, and in other cases just due to general competition.
Yeah, and we saw this year that we have so much electronical in the car, like you said. The first time I drove the F150 Raptor, I had a problem with the electronics. Do you remember that?
I must have been bad, because I've forced myself to forget. Tell us about it.
I was on the road, and the auto start, is that how you
auto start
name
stop.
it? Yeah. So the auto stop went, and when my light was green and I wanted to put gas, the car was on neutral. I was on the drive mode, but on neutral, and I just go down the hill, no gas power, trying to have gas, and nothing. So I need to, I was in the second line, so I need to switch in the first line. And at the end of the hill, I have a little power, little speed, and I put myself on the road,
yes,
on the side of the road, and try to start the car again, because there was a message that the car, you need to park it to put it on park, so I cannot do it in the middle of the hill. Put it on park and start it with the push button. So
now it's unfortunate because things like auto, start, and stop, which you hope it's never going to be auto, start, or stop, so that, you know, it's one or the other. Yeah, it just stopped and never started. Unfortunately, moving forward, you know, this is a bit of a story for 2022 and a very big story moving forward into the future. Vehicles are becoming so technologically advanced that something as simple as programming can be quite a nuisance. So here's the thing. That that F-150 Raptor that we own, we also own the Bronco and Mustang GT and soon a Maverick. So do like and subscribe to not miss out any of our, not just news coverage, but what we actually do with these vehicles, because her hybrid Maverick is going to be pulling 2 Sea-Doos. So she found that out at Christmas. I had to keep the secret from her for quite some time because I was saying, oh, you know, I'll maybe do a few reviews on the Sea-Doo I am buying myself. And she knew that I was getting a Sea-Doo. She knew that I had paid for a Sea-Doo. But then she found out at Christmas that she will also be getting a Sea-Doo, so she can follow along, so we can pull. We've got something interesting to pull with that hybrid Maverick. But the story, big story moving forward, is going to be how electronics themselves either break vehicles or even as simple as the programming. So more and more vehicles are becoming very complex laptops. They've got all sorts of programming, and the Raptor was actually fixed with simple programming.
It was not broken. It's just programming.
It's not broken. None of the hardware or mechanics had issues. It just needed to be reprogrammed. For whatever reason, the programming went out of whack.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. When you are in the traffic, especially.
And I know you. I bet you're extremely nervous in that situation.
Yeah, and it happens often. I was in the traffic and I need to put the car on park and start it again with the push button, and everybody behind me were raging. So yeah, it wasn't fun.
And I know I've been in the auto industry for quite some time, and I can tell you that's a good type of problem where it just gets fixed with programming because it's fixed easily and it didn't actually cause any damage. I've also seen through an Audi as well as 2 BMWs engines blowing because some of the hardware, the actual sensors, went out of whack, and for whatever reason, the correct readings were not given to the engine, given to the mechanics. So the mechanics of the vehicle, the hardware, the mechanical hardware wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. So they probably ran too lean and blew. Running too rich, not much of a problem. Running too lean, meaning not enough gas, too much oxygen. And these things, 3 cases of blown engines, unfortunately. And I have seen blown engines even on the V8 5-liter. I saw not this year, it goes back a couple of years, but those were cases of not doing oil changes. And that's why on the channel, I also, it's Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. I like the reviews, I like the news, but I also do the car care part to really try to help everyone out, because there's certain things that, you need to know about an EcoBoost engine. It can be extremely reliable, but you need to do your maintenance properly. If you've got a 2012, you need to know it's not good to have that thing idling all the time. So it's not the type of motor to idle in the morning for 30 minutes before you get into it because you want it to be, scolding hot inside the vehicle. So big stories for moving forward is going to be all about how programming causes problems in your vehicles. And, this ties very much into electrical vehicles because there's a whole lot of programming going behind them. Now, the market. Let's talk about the market this year. It has been pretty up and down, nerve-wracking, lots of stories done on this. And I worked in it on a daily basis, but we've also been personally affected by it. Now, Ford definitely got the most coverage, I'd say, in regards to automotive news for missing microchips. Why? Not because they had the worst problems, but because they had the most popular vehicles. Journalists cover what interests people. They want to grab people in. So how are you going to grab in the most amount of people? You're going to talk about the most popular models. And what were they? The Bronco, the Maverick, the Lightning. Those were the most popular, in the top 10 most popular vehicles on the market this year, Ford easily had 3 or 4 of them.
Because they had exciting new models.
Yeah, that's right. Well, why don't you throw on while we
Yeah.
talk about this, let's throw on the lightning in the
This
background.
one.
So it was a weird year. You've heard all sorts of stories about how it's the best time and the worst time to buy. And I know last spring, winter and spring of 2022, people were telling you it's the worst time to buy a new vehicle because prices were increasing. And I was not telling you it's the worst time to buy a vehicle because I was saying, well, interest rates are still low. And yes, interest rates did slowly climb up, but trades, your trade-in, if you had a trade-in, you had a bit of a lottery ticket. Trades were worth so much more. Trades are worth a good, I'd say 30% more. We're just throwing out an average, but trades were worth about 30% more. So at certain points earlier on in 2022, you had still relatively low interest rates. And yes, the new vehicles had gone up, an F-150 prices seemed to keep going up by, $1,000 here, $2,000 there. And by the end of the year, heck, $7,000, $8,000 Canadian. But at the beginning of the year, interest rates were low and you're getting a ton for your trade. So it was actually an excellent time to buy a new vehicle. So I did stories about that. I also mentioned that, if you were buying a used vehicle, you're paying more for it. But if you had a trade, it evens out. Where it does not even out. So as you progress through the year, interest rates went up dramatically. This actually caused used vehicles to actually finally be in good selections on the used lots. So selection went up. However, you could say the deal, did it really go down? Well, while your trade, if you had a trade that was worth more, it wasn't so bad. But where are we now? Where we are now, well, you can still find some deals on new vehicles. And the deal moving forward into 2023, the deal isn't going to be so much on incentives. And actually, you brought up the point. You said if there are incentives, you were saying it's probably because the model is not that popular.
Yeah, that's true. But with the demand, it's sure. How can I say that? I'm searching the word, sorry. Yeah, but when it's not that popular, they can try to have new customers to attract them. And when it's so popular, you don't have to
give incentives.
Yeah,
give extra reasons
doing
to
a
buy.
gift to your customer because you sell it anyway.
So that was the big story of 2022, and it's going to continue to be the big story of 2023. If you're looking for rebates, you're going to find them, but you're going to find them on less popular models. Ford got a lot of coverage from journalists about how they had all these prices over MSRP and how wild it was. Those were some of the most popular YouTube stories. And, what was really going on? Well, part of what was going on is other companies got to kind of fly under the radar. When you look at the actual stats, Hyundai was about 20% over MSRP on pretty much all their models. Even the Kia Soul was over MSRP. The Kia Soul, at least for me, isn't a highly desirable vehicle. So it has been, at least not in regards to looks. But anyways, popular models went for over MSRP. I think as we move into 2023, we're going to see new vehicle prices sell more at MSRP, and you might get rebates if you're looking at less popular models. But I think a lot of manufacturers, and I don't just think, I know a lot of manufacturers, they're talking about it. They don't want to go back to the formula of offering big rebates for X number of months per year. And part of that, actually, there's a lot of good to that. If every year your F-150 has a $10,000 rebate on it, well, throughout the entire year, your F-150 trade is worth $10,000 less. Toyota has actually been doing very little, either no rebates to very, very small, very modest rebates now for a good many, many years. And they also have really good resale value. Tesla, fantastic resale value, no rebates. Everyone pays the same price. So big news story this year was about Jim Farley saying that, it seemed like journalists were saying he's so upset that all EVs are going to be sold online. That didn't turn out to be really the case. What's going to happen is dealerships are, they have to sign a contract, and as of 2024, it's going to guarantee that you have your electric vehicle at MSRP. I don't expect any major rebates from Ford. I think they're going to follow more in line with Tesla, Toyota. And the real rebate you're going to be looking for is low interest. So right now in F-150 2022, I say right now, in December, we're in January now. So happy New Year to everyone, January 2nd. So we wish you all health and wealth. But for December, interest rate on an F-150 could be as low as 1.49%. Now, where the market is going to hurt you, if you bought a new or used vehicle, if you bought your new vehicle at MSRP during all this, the last 2 years, well, congratulations. You did a good job. And actually, for the first time in many years, we actually bought our Ford Bronco at MSRP and felt it was a good deal. We didn't get
if
a
it's
rebate
not over MSRP, you're happy, you're lucky.
That's right. And that's going to be the new norm. What does hurt, though, if you bought your used vehicle at an inflated price, or you bought your new vehicle over MSRP and you go to trade it in now or in the near future, that's where it's really going to hurt. So that kind of brings us to our personal F-150 Lightning. We were at day one. I remember I rushed out of bed. I was in bed watching the video Ford unveiling their F-150 Lightning, and I ran down, we'll say in my pajamas, to jump on the laptop and order and reserve it. But now we're not sure if we're going to have an F-150 Lightning, because, well, we had to buy a Raptor so that Marie drives the Bronco in the winter. So I had, so that Marie would have a winter vehicle. We didn't have any wheels for her. I'm not going to send her out in snowstorms in a Mustang GT convertible, and I wouldn't do that out of principle. I wouldn't do that anymore. I've actually driven 3 winters through many snowstorms with Mustangs, but those were the 6-cylinder and 4-cylinder versions. To do it with the V8 is against my religion. So it's sacrilegious, you could say. So we actually picked up an extra truck. And if you want to go to the little video that shows how much the value has changed, we bought that Raptor in October. And in buying the Raptor in October, unfortunately, it's gone down about $10,000 in value. Now, the little slide that we'll get to eventually, no worries. But it says over the last 6 months, it's gone down by $10,000. But and that hurts, because the Lightning's gone up by roughly 12,000 Canadian. And then we've got a Raptor losing $10,000 in value over 3 months. So we're $22,000 in the hole. But just talking about this F-150 Lightning, we still want it. We think it looks great with a 2-inch lift in the front. So this is exactly what I want to do to the Lightning Marie, if I can actually get my hands on one.
Yeah, and it's the same color as the one you ordered.
Yeah, it's actually an identical model. Leveling kit in the front, meaning 2 inches leveled up. So only the front has a 2-inch lift on it. We call that a leveling. And the suspension on this is so unbelievably huge. This thing offers an incredible ride. In regards to comfort, it's just as comfortable over the bumps, if not more, than a Raptor. Unbelievably impressive machine. So while electric vehicles are very expensive, at least with the Lightning, I've been able to test it and find that the increased value and the overall cost of the vehicle is at least worth it in regards to performance. For acceleration, the cornering is incredible because of the battery having most of the weight. The center of gravity is so unbelievably low. This thing handles incredibly, and it accelerates to 60 miles per hour as quickly as our Mustang GT, but it feels so much faster because of that initial torque. So at least due to comfort, handling, and acceleration, and of course looks, the Lightning does feel like it's worth the price tag. But if you want to throw that image up, here's proof. We like to use Cox Automotive for giving us average prices and really know where the market is. Try to follow this basically every single week. And you do really see there the past 30 days, the average price for a Raptor 6 months ago, basically $10,000 more. So if your dealer is offering you a good amount less for your vehicle than when you first ordered, 6 months or a year ago, that's normal. That's actually just the market. So that's a little piece of information for you. What is good though is you definitely should not be trying to sell you the vehicle over MSRP, because here's the big thing. 3 things going on with the market today. First of all, more new inventory. So inventory is not at what it was 2-3 years ago. It's, about a fourth or a fifth of that. But there were time periods, if you look back to spring 2022 and summer 2022, most dealers had essentially no inventory. It looked like they had inventory because customers' orders, people's orders would come into the yard. They've got to park it somewhere. They can't, hide these anywhere. So they're parked up front and gave the impression that dealers had vehicles, but these are customers' orders. So that's what's going on with that. But there's actually finally more inventory. There's a ton of used inventory. But really, unfortunately, if we talk about winners and losers for 2022, the banks are the big winners. They're charging way more interest. And, this is being a decision between the banks and the government to help, stop inflation, which oddly inflation was created by the banks and government, but we're all going to pay for it. And we are all paying for it. It's a bad circle. They created the inflation and now we're all having to pay for it, and we're paying for it in our homes and we're paying for it in our vehicles. So unfortunately, consumers were the big losers for 2022.
Yeah, because you said to me yesterday that the person at the dealership who does the financing with the bank doesn't have much more commission, so it's all in the bank pocket.
No, that's right. They don't have extra commission for bringing you a 9 or 10% loan. They're making the same money as a year ago or a year and a half ago.
They adjust probably the commission. So it's only the bank.
No, not probably. They have adjusted the commission. Okay. So at 10%, someone that's giving a 10% loan, it's as profitable for them, disadvantageous or advantageous, as it was when they're doing 5% a year and a half ago. So unfortunately, we the consumers are the big losers for 2022, but at least these high interest rates are bringing down considerably the prices of used vehicles. Now it affects us really negatively because our Raptor lost $10,000 in $10,000 US in 2.5 months. But if you're now,
that's my Maverick fault again.
Yes,
because it didn't come at the right time.
Did not come at the right time whatsoever. So we had to not only buy a vehicle, but we only lost a ton of money on that vehicle. If we sell it, if we use it over 10, 12 years, well, that's another story. But basically, we're all very negatively impacted when it comes to the prices of vehicles. You could say for our trades, unless you bought your trade, before. If you bought it with the markups, with the inflated prices on them, you're out of luck. You're salty out of luck. However, if you're now in the market for a used vehicle, great news. They're not way overpriced. It's actually a really great time to buy a used vehicle, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the year, except for that interest rate. So do try to pay, bring some cash with you. Try to put cash to diminish the total amount that you borrow on. That's definitely a big piece of advice that I've got for you, an important tip and trick. And the new vehicles, well, these increased rates are having new vehicles actually be available in yards, which is bringing down the prices, not the manufacturer's price. That has gone up due to inflation. Their cost of production has gone up. But the good news is less and less dealer markups. And let us not forget, Ford did get the most coverage on it, but they were overall across all their models, they did not have the worst markups in 2022. So that covers it. I think we've covered everything. If I do get the Lightning, I'm letting you know, I want the lift kit and I want the leveling kit in the front, and I definitely want some mags. Now I posted to the community a little mag selection, but you'll be happy to know the community picked the ones that are both black and white, so they'll match really well the truck. I think you'll find them pretty sharp.
Yeah. And just to end the show, do you want to show the video that you took about the Jeep?
Yes.
You really love that one.
Yes, and that's part of the big news stories for 2022. It's that more and more electric vehicles will be offered to us. But for me, my heart really goes to plugins. I'd like a V8 with a plug-in option so that it passes all the future emissions tests, so that you can drive electric 90% of the time, 95% of the time. But when you pedal down and put the pedal to the metal, that you get all that sound. And I'm hoping Ford not only has the 2.3 liter 4-cylinder plug-in, I really hope they get a 2.7 liter plug-in. But we'll have to wait and see. I think plug-in V8s, we don't have any hope for that. That's not going to be much of a reality, other than maybe some really high-end, maybe we'll see it out of Lamborghini and Ferrari. Maybe they'll go with a plug-in V8. But unfortunately for everyone with, normal money, we won't be seeing any plug-in V8s, but I think that'd be the best option. Best of both worlds. You can still drive down to Florida. If we go down to Florida in our Lightning, if we can even justify getting it, we'd be looking at roughly 10 stops, so a good solid added 5 hours. And you have to keep in mind a big story that went very much under the radar. The final story I'll share for 2022 is battery technology changing. Right now, mining cobalt and mining the precious minerals for lithium ion, it's a nasty business. It's not the best for the environment. It's not the best when it comes to human rights. And I am hoping to see batteries go towards aluminum, possibly. So maybe aluminum batteries, aluminum graphene batteries. But a big story was Ford actually talking about how the standard Mach-E, as well as the Lightning, they're slowly, soon we are going to find out. It's going to be more official. But we're going to be getting lithium iron phosphate batteries. So big advantages. Now, be prepared. The media will present it as a major disadvantage, because all the titles are going to say Ford's autonomy on, the Mach-E, on the Lightning, has gone down. This is horrible. Ford's making a huge mistake. While the autonomy will probably go down a little bit, charging will become much better, because with lithium ion, they charge very slowly from 0 to 15% and slowly from 80 to 100% if you're actually properly protecting those batteries, wanting them to last for a long period of time, and really removing the fire risk. Batteries, another story for 2022 was batteries catching on fire. Well, that's a major cause of that can be excessive heat from charging when you're going from 0 to 15% and over 80%. So you need to slow charge when you're in those ranges.
The industry is still adjusting.
It's a young industry. It's a new industry.
We need to let them the time to bring a better product.
Yep.
Quality product. Maybe in a few years it will be totally different. So
it is going to be totally different, because right now our trip to Florida would be really we'd have to make adjustments. So every roughly 3 hours, we'd have to stop for roughly, 40 minutes. Every 3 to 4 hours, we'd stop for 40 minutes to recharge. Whereas
it's not that easy.
With lithium iron phosphate, we would be stopping a little sooner. So let's say instead of 4 hours, maybe we'll stop 30 or 40 minutes earlier, but the charging will go faster. So we won't, probably wouldn't stop quite as often, because we could get the battery right down to, let's say, 2% and still charge quickly all the way to 100%.
Wow.
And another big story is, and this is going to be moving to the future, vehicles are going to charge faster because we're going to have better charging cables. And hopefully we get to the point where electric vehicles can charge up, just like filling up a tank of gas, where you can charge up and it's going to be a 5 to 10 minute process. So there's a lot of different technologies coming forward, because manufacturers do realize the big holdback for electric vehicles is charge time. So we are moving towards a future with very quick charge times. I can't wait for that to happen. Hopefully it also helps prices come down a little, but likely what we are going to see are electric vehicle prices stabilizing, and ICE, traditional internal combustion engines, the prices of those are going to continue to go up quite a bit. If you look at the trucks in the last 2 years, truck prices have gone up tremendously in the last 2 years. And I think what we're going to see are traditional vehicles, you could say, becoming, more closely priced with electric vehicles. And electric vehicles, I don't expect prices to go down with battery technology that will cost less. I just expect them to not inflate as much. So that covers our 2022 and 2023. Was there anything you wanted to add before we head out?
No, I think you did a good recap of the year. So we'll hope to have a lot of great news like that for 2023.
Yes, and we will be covering all the major stories, all the important must-know information. We'll do, build-in prices and also cover information so that you're not fooled. We don't want anyone getting fooled. We want everyone to get a fantastic price when they go to buy their vehicle. So we'll continue with our tips and tricks on how to, save thousands. So please do hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you actually know when we're going on, when we've got a show. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.